Have you ever had a landlord who was less a helpful property manager and more a complete, unbothered menace? Someone who truly believed the rules simply did not apply to them until they met their match. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Hazel, and today we're diving into a tale of meticulous, satisfying legal accountability. Our storyteller today is a sharp young professional we'll call Gideon. Gideon had finally found what he thought was the perfect apartment after a long search. It was a cozy unit in a charming, older building located right in the heart of the city. The rent was reasonable, and the location was absolutely ideal for his daily commute. The landlord, a man we'll name Silas, seemed perfectly amiable during their initial meetings. He was all smiles and assurances, promising prompt attention to any and all maintenance needs. Within a few weeks of moving in, Gideon noticed a few minor issues around the apartment: a dripping faucet in the bathroom, a light fixture that flickered inconsistently. He promptly sent Silas a polite email outlining the small repairs needed. Silas responded quickly, assuring him someone would be over to take a look soon. Days turned into a week, then two, and still no one showed up to address the issues. Gideon sent a follow-up email, a little less polite but still professional. Silas replied with a vague excuse about scheduling conflicts and promised to reschedule. This pattern, my friends, was merely the prologue to a much larger drama unfolding. Gideon, being a meticulous person, started to keep a detailed log of his communications. He noted dates, times, and the content of every email and phone call with Silas. Then, the issues escalated from minor annoyances to genuine living discomforts. The hot water started to become unreliable, often running cold in the mornings, and a persistent draft developed around one of the windows, making the living room chilly. Gideon reported these new problems, emphasizing the growing inconvenience. Silas continued his routine of vague promises, followed by complete inaction. It became clear that maintenance requests were simply disappearing into a void. Suddenly, a letter arrived from Silas, announcing a significant rent increase. It was well beyond the legally permitted percentage for the area, and Gideon knew it. He immediately contacted Silas, questioning the legality of the new rent. Gideon cited local housing regulations, calmly explaining why the increase was illegitimate. Silas, however, dismissed Gideon's concerns with a wave of his hand. He claimed the new rates were, quote, market value, and insisted Gideon would have to pay. As winter approached, a critical problem emerged. The building's heating system failed. Gideon's apartment became incredibly cold, making daily life genuinely miserable. He pleaded with Silas to fix the heater, explaining the health risks of such low temperatures. Silas's response was shockingly callous, stating repairs would be made when he got to it. When Gideon persisted, politely reminding him of his landlord duties, Silas grew aggressive. He threatened Gideon with eviction, claiming he was being a, quote, difficult tenant. This threat, instead of intimidating Gideon, was the final straw. He realized fighting Silas directly in the moment was not going to work. Gideon went silent, outwardly complying with Silas's unreasonable demands. But inwardly, a quiet, methodical plan for justice began to form. He spent the next 2 months immersing himself in landlord-tenant law, every housing code, every regulation, every legal precedent became his new obsession. He meticulously photographed every single violation, every peeling paint chip, every drafty window. Each photo was carefully time-stamped, creating an undeniable digital trail of neglect. Gideon wasn't just documenting his own apartment's issues. He subtly started observing common areas, the hallways, the building's exterior. Vance, meanwhile, was completely oblivious to Gideon's quiet diligence. He was convinced Gideon had given up, resigning himself to the poor conditions. Then came Vance's next move, an unexpected rent increase. It was significant and clearly violated the local rental increase regulations. Gideon calmly looked up the specific laws regarding rent hikes in his city. He discovered Vance had completely overstepped, making the increase illegal. This, of course, became another meticulously documented piece of evidence. Winter arrived, and with it a critical new problem. Gideon's heating system completely failed, leaving his apartment bitterly cold. He immediately contacted Vance, explaining the urgent need for a repair. Vance's response was dismissive, saying he'd get around to it eventually. Days turned into a week, and the temperature inside Gideon's home plummeted. He made repeated calls, each one met with indifference or outright hostility. Vance even suggested Gideon was making a big deal out of nothing. When Gideon cited his tenant rights, Vance's demeanour shifted. He became aggressive, threatening to evict Gideon for being a, quote, troublemaker. "You're fortunate to still have a home," Vance sneered over the phone. Gideon didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He simply listened. He let Vance rant, absorbing every word, every threat. After the call, Gideon felt a surge of cold resolve. He realized Vance was not only negligent, but actively malicious. This wasn't just about his apartment anymore, it was about systemic injustice. He decided it was time to expand his network. Gideon discreetly started talking to other tenants in the building. He approached them casually, asking about their experiences with Vance. The stories he heard were depressingly similar. Unaddressed repairs, sudden fee increases, ignored maintenance requests. Many tenants felt helpless, intimidated by Vance's aggressive style. Gideon, armed with his legal knowledge, offered quiet guidance. He helped them understand their rights without directly advising legal action. In doing so, he uncovered a pattern of widespread housing code violations. Vance wasn't just cutting corners, he was breaking numerous laws. Gideon compiled all the shared experiences, cross-referencing them with his own. He had a mountain of evidence, photos, timestamps, communication logs, tenant testimonies. The next step was clear. It was time to bring in official help. Gideon calmly contacted the local housing authority. He explained the situation, providing a concise summary of the neglect. The housing authority agreed to schedule an immediate inspection. They were particularly concerned about the unheated apartments in winter. Gideon felt a quiet sense of anticipation, knowing change was finally coming. Vance, still completely unaware, continued his usual dismissive routine. He had no idea the net of accountability was rapidly closing around him. This was the moment everything would shift for Vance and his tenants. Gideon made the call, providing all his meticulously organised documentation to the housing authorities. He submitted the photos, the timestamps, and the detailed log of every unaddressed complaint. The officials were immediately struck by the sheer volume and clarity of the evidence presented. This wasn't just a few isolated incidents, it was a comprehensive record of systemic neglect. An inspection was quickly scheduled, much to the surprise of Vance, who received a formal notice. Vance was utterly bewildered, convinced this was some kind of personal vendetta. He tried to brush it off, assuming he could charm or intimidate his way out of it. But the inspectors were professionals, armed with the precise codes Vance had violated. They meticulously checked every apartment, every common area, and every utility system. The conditions were exactly as Gideon had described, if not even worse, in person. Unheated units, the mould, the faulty wiring, the broken fixtures. It was all there. They found numerous violations of health, safety, and building codes throughout the property. Vance's negligence had been widespread, affecting nearly every tenant in the building. He stood by, fuming silently, as the inspectors filled out page after page of infractions. His dismissive attitude evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of panic and disbelief. The official report was damning, detailing every single one of Vance's transgressions. The consequences were swift and severe, far beyond what Vance could have imagined. He was confronted with a barrage of hefty fines for each and every code violation. On top of that, he was mandated to make immediate, extensive repairs to the entire building. This wasn't a suggestion, it was a legal order with a strict deadline attached. Vance attempted to appeal, to argue, to deny everything, but his efforts were futile. The evidence was too overwhelming, and his history of non-compliance was well documented. He found himself in an illegal quagmire, facing financial ruin from the fines and repair costs. The cost of bringing the building up to code was astronomical, easily exceeding his cash flow. It became clear that Vance could not, or would not, fulfill his obligations as a landlord. The housing authorities, seeing no other option, began the process to compel a sale. Vance was legally mandated to divest himself of the property due to his egregious failures. His investment, once a source of easy income, had become a bottomless pit of legal fees. The building was put on the market, a visible sign of Vance's complete downfall. He had truly picked the wrong tenant to try and exploit, and now he was paying the price. After a few months, a new owner acquired the property, a company with a strong reputation. They immediately began the necessary renovations, prioritizing tenant comfort and safety. The new owner was genuinely committed to creating a positive, living environment for everyone. They also made it a point to personally meet with each of the long-suffering tenants. During this process, they learned the full extent of Gideon's meticulous work and advocacy. The new owner was incredibly impressed by Gideon's bravery and his dedication to justice. They understood that without Gideon, Vance's exploitation might have continued indefinitely. As a token of their immense gratitude, they offered Gideon a very special arrangement. He was given a significantly discounted lease for his apartment, a recognition of his efforts. It was a substantial financial relief, a well-deserved reward for standing up for himself. The other tenants also saw immediate improvements and felt a renewed sense of security. The building transformed from a neglected hazard into a truly comfortable home for all. Vance, on the other hand, lost his investment and faced significant financial penalties. His short-sighted greed led to his complete undoing, a classic tale of poetic justice. Gideon's quiet resolve had completely dismantled Vance's exploitative empire. The new owner, impressed by Gideon's thoroughness, recognized his valuable contribution. They offered Gideon a significantly discounted lease for his continued tenancy. It was a quiet acknowledgement of his efforts in exposing the former landlord's misdeeds. Gideon not only secured his home but also ensured better conditions for everyone. This story, my friends, is a powerful testament to the impact of meticulous documentation. It shows how patience and a keen understanding of your rights can completely change a situation. Many landlords operate under the assumption that tenants will be too intimidated to fight back. They rely on apathy and a lack of knowledge to continue their exploitative practices. Vance certainly underestimated Gideon's quiet resolve and his strategic mind. Gideon didn't resort to shouting or empty threats. He gathered undeniable proof. He understood that true power lay in facts and the legal framework, not just emotion. His actions brought tangible, positive change, not just for himself but for an entire community. It's a reminder that sometimes the most effective revenge is simply holding people accountable. So, what do you think of Gideon's incredible display of tenant power? Have you ever had to stand up to an entitled landlord or any other exploitative figure? Share your experiences and thoughts down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of clever revenge.